Think about your dreams. Something you really want.
Ese sería nuestro sueño, ¿verdad? Hecho realidad.
And then compare it to the dream of this community.
Y nosotros no queremos que eso se quede en un sueño.
Their big dream is that they no longer have sewage water running down their streets and flooding their homes.
Una peste que esto no hay quien lo soporte.
And that's something they've been fighting for at least 2 decades.
Yo te diría que la mayor parte de mi vida he visto las aguas esas sobresalir.
What they've been waiting for so long is the dredging of this canal. Because in the year 2020 in Puerto Rico, there are homes that either don't have a sewage system or have faulty sewage systems. So their dirty water ends up in that body of water. And because it hasn't been dredged, when it rains, it floods. And that dirty water travels all the way down here, and the people who live here have to deal with it.
Eso dura dos días en bajar y después me pongo a limpiar, paso más, pues, cuando para acá. Y acumulo mis cositas.
This community hasn't just said, hey, we have a problem, fix it. El Caño Martín Peña is a very organized community. In fact, their initiatives are recognized internationally. They even got an award from the United Nations. And that's because in the last 15 years, they've had to step up to meet some pretty monumental challenges they've had. And I'll give you some examples. Their young people were leaving because they couldn't find jobs, so they went ahead and created economic opportunities for their youth.
Nos pagan algo que a casi nadie en Puerto Rico le están pagando dentro de mi comunidad, con mi gente.
Then the government shut down one of their schools, so they rescued it and they turned it into a store and even created their own currency so they can give it to people to reward them for community work. And when help took too long to arrive after Hurricane Maria, they gathered donations from nonprofits and other groups, and they were able to fix the roofs of more than 100 homes.
Ay, quedó formidable, quedó bien bonito.
Esa es mi bendición. Él está bien hecho.
But they could only do so much with the money they had, and they estimate that there are still some 300 houses in their communities with blue tarps.
Aquí hasta que yo sepa no hay ningún techo hecho por el gobierno. Que es una pena porque el gobierno tiene el dinero para ayudar a cientos de familias que lo necesitan. Y es triste que a 3 años de María todavía haya gente viviendo en condiciones pésimas, sin tener una buena estructura de su casa ni tener un buen techo. Por pura burocracia, demasiado documento, existiendo el dinero.
I interviewed them 1 year ago, and at the time they were fighting to get disaster relief funds.
Si lo comparamos con el año pasado, te tendría que decir que estamos casi en el mismo lugar. Las reconstrucciones en su gran mayoría han sido por la misma gente que ha hecho de tripas corazones, como decimos aquí en el barrio.
I've been talking to a lot of people to try to understand why. What's the holdup? Because those funds were approved 2.5 years ago. In that time, we've seen interactions like this one.
Your chief financial officer testifying before the Appropriations Subcommittee on Housing said that you withheld funds that were federally appropriated by Congress to Puerto Rico. Did anyone at the White House, including the president or the chief of staff, ask you to withhold money that was supposed to go to Puerto Rico?
Interestingly enough, a lot of what we do is dictated by common sense. If you have a jurisdiction in which there are 3 changes of government within a month, and which has historically had difficulty with financial management, to put an unprecedented amount of money in there without the appropriate controls is...
That is not the question here.
And then locally, the Puerto Rican government came up with rules that said that money couldn't be used in flood zones like El Caño Martín Peña. So once again, the community had to organize and pressure the government to change that. But the big irony is that the reason that area floods to begin with is because that channel is clogged with debris and trash. And remember, they've been trying to get that cleaned for a couple of decades.
Que ya son demasiados años sufriendo lo mismo.
Y me tuve que meter por el agua.
Me pongo nerviosa porque digo, ay, que no se me meta dentro de la casa.
Hay gente que está una semana sin salir de la casa porque el agua no te deja.
So check this out. The money to dredge the channel was authorized in 2007. So again, what's the holdup? Well, a lot has happened in those 13 years. We're talking studies that were needed, paperwork, more lobbying from the community, and visits to Washington, D.C. Too many hurdles to go into, but I'll give you one example. Even though Congress authorized the $150 million back in 2007, there was a study that was needed in order to get that money to go ahead with the dredging. And that study cost another $9 million. Well, that wasn't approved till 2016. So now that they got that done, El Caño Martín Peña is competing with other projects in other states to be picked by the Army Corps of Engineers so that they could finally do the dredging. And in recent years, they've lost that bid. So when they see headlines like this one, where politicians are celebrating more money being approved for their project, this is the reaction.
Mencionan mucho dinero, pero no llegan. Entonces, ¿para cuándo? Y se siguen pasando la papa caliente y estirándolo para que la otra administración haga, que la otra haga, y al final al cabo no se hace nada.
And as you can imagine, living in these conditions for so long is affecting their health.
Y no es justo que más niños sigan naciendo para volver a pasar lo mismo que nosotros pasamos por más de 30 años.
Some people have had to move, but others don't see why they should abandon their community.
Nosotros tenemos una comunidad aquí hecha. Somos una familia, lo hemos amado, lo seguimos amando y hemos trabajado por él para que salga hacia adelante. Y yo no creo que la solución sea mudarme de este lugar cuando la solución la tiene el gobierno en las manos, que es el de darnos el trato necesario, justo, para que podamos vivir bien y saludable.
And they just finished a round of visits with local politicians because every election year they have them come in and commit to advocating for their needs so that they can keep them accountable. But when it comes to the federal level, as we know, Puerto Ricans can't vote for president, and they also don't have a voting member of Congress. So I think this is an important topic that I would like to discuss with you. Tell me in the comments if you favor statehood, independence, a freely associated state, or what you think should happen with Puerto Rico's status. Because there's going to be yet another referendum asking Puerto Ricans in November if they want statehood. So I think it's a topic I would like to explore in a video. So give me your thoughts and I'll see you soon.